All right, in this video, we're going to go through the SolarCheck Pro calculator workflow, as in conducting an inspection using the calculator. This is going to be a simulation, but it'll give you a good idea of what you need to fill out during these inspections. So first of all, when you log into the app, you're going to come to this dashboard screen. It's going to show you all of your inspections. You've got your client address, inspector, date, and then what the status of that system was. You can edit each individual report by clicking the pencil icon. You can share the report with your client and get the link just for pressing this button, and then obviously you can delete inspections there. These are all searchable, so you can type in the client address, inspector, really any information that's here, you can type that in and it's going to pull up what you need. So we're going to go ahead and create a new inspection and go through this together. As you can see up at the top, we have multiple tabs, and these are designed in this order for a reason, and we're going to go through it in order and kind of explain to you why it is in this order. So first thing we're going to enter is the client's name, and then you're going to go ahead and enter the entire address. So for this example, we'll just use kind of a random address here. It's very important that you verify that the location has been found, and then it's going to give you the coordinates for that location. If you don't see location found, you can hit this button to refresh it. But you are going to want to type in the entire address, city, state, and zip code so that you get most accurate information. Then you're going to assign your inspectors. From there, the inspection date is auto-filled. You can change that if you need to, and you can also modify the report title if you prefer. Okay, then I'm going to hit next. You could save it from here, and it'll be shown in your dashboard. You can always pick up where you left off with that edit pencil icon that I showed you from the dashboard. So we'll go ahead and hit next, and this is going to take us to the measurements page. The reason that we take our measurements before we gather our system info is we want to really prioritize optimal conditions. So we want to get these readings while we have good conditions. So if we show up on site and we have favorable conditions, the sun is shining, even if it's not exactly noon, we want to go ahead and take those measurements. We can always come back and retake them later, but I would get your measurements as soon as you possibly can. That way, if conditions get worse, you've taken it at the best time. Again, it's fairly simple once you know where everything's at to retake them. And you always want to prioritize the sky conditions over the time. So obviously solar noon, sunny is going to be your optimal window. But if you have sunny conditions at say 9:30, 10 o'clock, that's better than having cloudy conditions at noon. So we've got a couple of options when we're filling out the array configuration. We can either select a single facing array, meaning as we talked about, all panels are facing the same direction. Or we can do a multi-facing array, which the panels face different directions. The single facing array, you're going to need to put in your panel tilt. And again, there's a lot of information in this video. It's going to be one of the longer ones. Just remember as you're going through this process that you have tips along the way. So it should walk you through it pretty well, or you can always come back and revisit the video. So try not to get too overwhelmed by this, but just try to digest the information the best you can. So for the plane of array mode, you're going to tilt the irradiance meter to match the panel angle and direction. And the best way to do this is if you have roof access, assuming that the panels are installed on the roof, is to pitch a ladder, go up there. Usually you can do this right from the eave. Put your irradiance meter on the panel and put it in tilt mode and get the tilt right off of the panel. And that can be just a quick trip up to the eave, and then you're going to type in your panel tilt in degrees. If it's a multi-facing array, that it actually makes it simpler for gathering your irradiance reading and your amp reading early on, because now you don't even have to get on the roof to get the panel tilt. You're going to get that later because you can take your reading at horizontal or level. And I would recommend with either one of these scenarios to set up your tripod, put your irradiance meter on the tripod and match the desired tilt. So in this case, 18 degrees would match the panel tilt. If you're in multi-facing array, meaning that you have panels facing different directions, some south, some west on different roof faces, that you're going to put your irradiance meter at horizontal. And again, a nice tip right here, keep your irradiance meter horizontal or level. But you want to set that up on your tripod down on the ground, typically. And the reason we'll go over, but you're trying to get your irradiance meter at the very, it's not impossible to do it at the exact same time, but as close together as possible so that you're getting accurate measurements. So for this example, we'll do the single facing array. We're going to select our weather conditions. And the next step really is to get everything set up. So again, you set up your tripod, you're going to put it at the proper tilt. Then you're going to go find where am I going to get my electrical measurement reading from. If it's a backfed breaker, typically, you're going to take the panel cover off. You're going to go ahead and clamp your meter onto the conductor that's feeding that backfed breaker. And then you've got both of those two pieces of equipment set up, and now you're in a position to take them at as close a time as possible. And that's a big reason why we don't climb up on the roof, typically, to get the irradiance reading. We'll just put it on the tripod down at the ground. Make sure that everything is unobstructed around you. Even trees nearby, even if they're not casting a shadow, they can have an effect. So you want to do it well away from the house. And you've got to have balance with this, right? Because you want to be able to read your clamp and get to the irradiance reading, get those as close together as possible. So we'll just say we took our irradiance reading at 850. And then the ambient temperature outside, again, ambient temperature. This is not off of the panels. This is, you can use your irradiance meter for that. It does have a thermometer, and you can put that in there. You can switch this over to Fahrenheit, but the default mode in the irradiance meter that we recommend is in Celsius. So this is where it's defaulted to. I will tell you what that is in Celsius below. And again, everything here is designed to walk you through this process. So it's giving you instructions for this single facing array. Tilt meter to match the panel tilt angle. Align the meter direction with the panel orientation. So have it facing the same way. That's important. Hold for 15 seconds and record the highest stable value. So if it's being erratic, you want to kind of get an average of what's going on. You don't want a peak or a low. We'll try to get it as stable as possible. And that's what this measurement timer is here for. I can say I don't use it on every inspection, but it does come in handy sometimes, just to be able to start a timer and look at the meter and see kind of what you're getting. I also like to take a picture so that I have photo evidence of exactly what my irradiance meter was. And then you're going to go over to your amp clamp reading, and you're going to get that right away. Again, as close as possible to get these. Both the irradiance and the amp reading is the best scenario. So let's just say we read 20 amps, and again, I'll take a picture of that. I'm going to select the time of the reading. Let's say in this case it's 10:30 a.m. Now, we talked about there's some scenarios where you're not going to be able to get an amp reading with the meter. That's totally fine. You have this system readout button here. You can click on that, and you can input exactly what's shown on either the amp or the inverter display. So put your wattage in, and you can select it's either going to be watts or kilowatts that's shown in. Make sure this is correct. It will affect your reading, obviously. And then whether it's AC or DC. You can add multiple readings depending on the scenario. You can override the electricity rate. So if your client has a electrical bill and it has the kilowatt hour, the price per kilowatt hour on there, you can't override this. Otherwise, it's just going to go off what your company admin has set up as the average in your area. And that is done from the company admin dashboard settings. And we talked about taking photo evidence, always good, as you know, with an inspector. you can upload these right here, and then they're always saved there for you. You can access them at any time. I would recommend it. It's not going to show up on the client-facing report, but you can always pull back on that as a CYA. So I recommend taking a clamp meter photo, 2 of them, one that's a close-up display and the other one that's zoomed out, so that you can see which panel you took it from and what the wire placement was. And then take a picture of the irradiance meter, what it was reading at that time. And then if you do want to put your panel labels in here of the manufacturer nameplate, you can, inverted nameplate, or you can put that in your home inspection report that's separate from this. You can take pictures, you can upload pictures, you can browse files, and then you can take notes, internal notes. Very useful. From there, you're going to go into the gathering information stage. But when you get these readings, now kind of the pressure's off. You know, okay, I had fairly good conditions. I got my reading. Now I can gather information, but I'm not in a rush to do it. And if conditions get favorable, I can go back and redo them if I want. Like if we get closer to solar noon and we still got full sun, I can go take my readings again if I want. But at least I have this saved. So you can save the draft here and return later, or you can just go to the next button. And now, again, system info. So I'd recommend typically waiting to your roof inspection so that you're being most efficient with your time to gather the information about the panels. And the way this works is you've got your manufacturer. So you can select that or you can search it. And then you're going to put your DC rating. A lot of this is going to be found on the nameplate, but as we recommend, if you can gather solar dock information before you get on site, I even like to go ahead and put in a lot of the client information and the address, and all of that is done. And then if I have solar docks to back up a lot of this stuff, I can go ahead and put that all in there when I'm on the computer. And then when I'm on the job site, it's really just verification. I've reduced the workload a lot by gathering that information up front. But if you do find yourself to where you're having to gather this information off of the data tags on site, you're going to do that when you're up on the roof. Okay, so we're going to put in a panel rating, install year, if you have it, always good. Sometimes it'll be on the solar dock, sometimes it'll be on the actual label. If you can't get access to that, you could ask the homeowner, the listing agent, anybody that knows when the system might have been installed. Where was it mounted? Cleanliness, this is a bit subjective, but if it's 100% clean, speaks for itself. If you do have a light layer of dirt or debris on there, you're going to go light, and then it goes all the way up to heavy. So this tells us what to expect out of the panels based on their current condition. If they've got heavy debris, we're going to expect less out of them. And then your panel tilt is already input from that previous measurement screen. Remember, we got our panel tilt, and that's how for the single facing array, we had to match that with our irradiance meter. So that information carries over and it's already done. What direction was it facing? Usually south. How many panels were there? Say 18. And then we've got panels shaded. This will sometimes come in handy. Let's just put this at 1. I'll show you an example when we get down below. And then how much was it shaded? So if there's a tree overhanging, if there's an obstruction, if there's vegetation, was it 50% shaded? Was it 100% obstructed? That's important information. And then we're going to add, so for a single facing array, typically this is all you're going to have. By the way, you can edit the group name. If you have a multi-facing array, then you're going to add a panel group. And you can copy this over, but just by clicking a button, because a lot of times the wattage and a lot of this information is going to be the same. You're just changing the direction and maybe the panel count. Maybe we don't have panel shaded at all here. We do need to put the shading type that is required if we do select panel shaded. Okay, so we can put as many panel groups as we want. Sometimes they're facing multiple directions, and you're going to want to gather that information. And when you're up on the roof gathering this information, you're going to want to get the tilt off of each individual panel direction. So if you have a group of panels that's facing west, it may be on a steeper facing slope, and the tilt goes into the calculation. So it's very important that you get the tilt for each panel group and input that into these fields. I will mention that there are some times when you have panels that are all facing the same direction, but maybe they were installed at different times, but they run to the same inverter. In that case, you would create two panel groups, because things like the manufacturer may be different if they came and installed it much later. And maybe the wattage is different too. Maybe it's 400 watts because they're newer panels, and maybe the install year is different. But the tilt is the same. And you can decide, okay, well, they're all the same direction, but I've got 18 of those older panels and I've got maybe 11 of these newer panels. So that is a scenario that exists. And then in that case, I might say, newer panels. And then you could name these older panels. So you can play around with that, however makes it sense for your report. And then you've got everything tallied up down here. Okay, battery storage. This is really for documentation purposes. At this time, SolarCheck does not evaluate batteries, but you do want to document it for the client. And we make it really easy. You can literally select the type of battery from a photo list, which is really nice. Okay, so you just see what you're looking at. If it's not there, you can manually enter it here, or you could just select the one that you see. It's going to input the manufacturer based on the image. Okay, we're going to put the install year, and then we're going to select what the battery size is and kilowatt hour rating. If you don't see it within this dropdown, you can do a manual input. You can also select unknown. There are a lot of times the data tags are not visible on these, and you're just not going to know what the size is. Again, if you gather that information up front, if you get some solar documentation, if you're lucky enough, you can have all this information filled out. How many batteries were there? Okay. And then lastly, we're going to come to the inverter configuration. So this is the same as the batteries. It's really nice. You've got all of this filtered down. We've got all microinverters or string inverters. And you can even, like, let's say you're looking at an inverter and it says SMA on it. You can type in SMA here, and you're going to narrow it down to just the SMA inverters, and then decide which one looks most like yours. Select it. Now this is something that I wanted to put the panel shaded in here. If you have panels shaded and a string inverter, it's going to ask you if you have optimizers. And we talked a little about what optimizers are. They almost look like little microinverters, and they're mounted on the underside of the panel. So be on the lookout for those. If you have a string inverter and you see a little box mounted underneath that looks like a microinverter, it's not. It's likely an optimizer. And this is what they look like. Okay, so this software is built to where it makes it very simple for you in the field. Even if you're not doing each one of these workflows on a daily basis, you can remind yourself. And it says there are little small black boxes usually mounted underneath each panel, extra wiring leading to a central inverter. Okay, so do we have them? Yes or no, or unknown? It's totally fine. If you don't have panels shaded, you're not ever going to have to worry about that. So if I put these back to 0, that goes away. Okay. You can put in your model number. This is optional. It's just how much information do you want to gather. That's usually on the data tag. I would recommend taking pictures of the data tag so that you have all photo evidence of everything that you're inputting here. What's the rating of the string inverter, and what's the year? Now, if you're looking at these data tags, I've got a nice cheat sheet for you based on the brand and the code format and how to read and these code formats with each one. Some of them are just printed right on the label, and those are shown here. Again, we're taking a lot of the guesswork out for you. Sometimes you're going to have two string inverters. You can add inverters as needed. And again, copy from inverter 1, just like on the panel groups. So all the information copies over, because a lot of times that's the scenario. You've got 2 of the exact same inverters mounted, and you can just copy that all over. You can remove them. We'll do a microinverter example here. Select the manufacturer. You can also select, obviously, from the photos. And we'll put in the wattage rating for the microinverter, it's usually going to say max continuous. Keep in mind, if you're talking about microinverters, you're not going to add multiple inverters. It's asking you here how many panels per microinverter, and usually you're going to have one microinverter installed under each panel. So this is defaulted to one. You're usually never going to have to change this, but it's there if you need it. Okay. Very last section before we calculate our performance is going to be the solar backfed breaker. Was it backfed? If yes, we can add a breaker. How many backfed breakers? Sometimes you have multiple arrays that are coming into multiple breakers. And one thing to keep in mind is that if you have a 240 double pole breaker, that's say 30 amps, that's one backfed breaker. If you have four of those, four 240 volt double pole breakers, then you have four. Okay. So sometimes you will have four coming into the panel, and then I would typically take my clamp meter or amp clamp meter reading from the feeder wires that are taking that power from the panel out to the house. That way you just clamp the one conductor. So you're getting the sum total of all of those arrays in one place. We'll go over some examples with that. But the main point of putting the backfed breaker and the size in is it's going to do a calculation based on the size of the system and make sure that this breaker is adequate for the scenario. Okay, so we're going to, we can just save a draft here and come back to it, but I would recommend that you calculate performance on site. You can do so in offline mode. It is going to have some limitations, but if you input any information wrong or you did something wrong, you may find that out if you go ahead and calculate performance on site. If you get a weird reading, you may want to go back and double check your work and make sure you gathered the appropriate information. You took the reading from the right place. Always double check. Okay, once we calculate performance, this is what the report is going to look like. We've already gone over this a little bit, and we're going to go over it again in detail. But on the next sections, we are going to be a little bit redundant in talking about gathering some of that system info. I do realize that we're covering some things that we just covered in this video, but it's extremely important that you understand these concepts in depth so that you have a good process when you're out in the field. Those also serve as a place where you can come back and easily explore each individual section. So I do encourage you to pay attention to the additional sections and make sure you're grasping these concepts in depth. Okay, let's move on.